Hello, beautiful friends, and welcome back to the Meredith Patterson podcast. I'm your host, Meredith, and today I'm joined by someone who means the world to me, my husband of almost 14 years. Can you believe it? The father of our two boys, and just an extraordinary talent you may know from a little band called the Trans-Siberian Orchestra and countless performances all over the world. My husband, Dustin Brayley. Hi, babe.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast.
It's nice to be here. It's
So
it's 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 strange to be like on the other side of this, but we'll see what happens.
you are in our bedroom and I'm in the other room, which is just so funny because it just feels like we're letting all these people into our conversation. And we will, I had you on my other podcast and I luckily got to interview you. And it was really fun and kind of funny and strange, but this is going to be a different conversation. So we'll have you back on the podcast. You'll be a regular, if you will.
All right.
But today we're going to talk about, it's Suicide Awareness Month. And this kind of goes to a conversation you and I had on the back patio of our house recently. And I just thought, I think this is something people need to kind of flesh out and talk about, especially in today's environment where mental health is so important.
Mhm.
And you and I both have had such unique experiences with mental health, but in your family, it's really palpable. So let's
Yeah.
start there
Okay.
and just talk about, how suicide is in your family.
Yeah, it is. It's unfortunately, it's affected not only all the family members, but it's affected. If I'm trying to actually think about how many, it's like a handful of my family members, and most importantly, my father. Um, it's it's a thing where you try to make sense of certain things and you try to figure out. Well, let me back up. I mean, this was, God, how many years ago? I was 19 or 19 or yeah, when it happened. I mean, it was in 2000. So it was a long time ago. And to happen to me at such a young age, um, it's kind of, it's been enough time now to where you don't really process it the same anymore, and you don't really think about like the whys and what happened and what could have been done at the time to prevent something like that from happening. That stuff's kind of been worked through. Like I've taken enough time to work through that, but it's a tough situation because when it happened, and I was old enough to like understand, being 19, to understand that part of life, and I had my father for many many years. It wasn't like it happened when I was like super young, and it's wild how on this side of it, how you kind of like go through your own sort of denial. You go through even making up stories so that the people around you that aren't like directly connected to your family, friends and colleagues and people. I was in college at the time. I didn't tell them the truth. I told them that my father died from heart complications and essentially having a heart attack. And the reason that was decided by my family was to protect me and to save myself at the time, a mixture of like embarrassment or having to explain or maybe to shield myself in some way, as silly as this may sound, that the fact that I was in school to become an actor. I was in school for musical theater. That if I was ever, working in a show or on even a scene for, a class, if it got like pretty deep, if the scene was really serious or something like that, would it make me spiral into my own sort of sadness and depression and things like that. So I think that there was good intentions by doing that, but also it also definitely started to feel like this unspoken thing for a long time. And even, when we got together, when I just turned 30. So it had been over a decade. And it was really you that was kind of like, you should talk about this. You should come clean, if you will, and not really feel the shame, because shame is weird. Like it's weird. I never really felt ashamed. And it's also odd how like not a lot of people bring it up. Once they hear that someone has passed, especially when you're younger, they just kind of like acknowledge it and then they sort of move on. And it's probably because nobody wants to like be reminded that their parent's not around or whatever the case may be. But I finally, with your help, got to that place of going, you can talk about this, whether it's been time or whether it's been, because there's some truth to time heals wounds and all of that. And I didn't go like public per se, but I did make a video that I sent to a lot of my friends that I consider close friends, which I'm very fortunate to have, a good sized friend group. And what was wild is the response was mixed with all love. Every single person was very loving and supportive. And then there was people that were surprising that had known the whole time. And they had the respect, I guess, for myself and my family to never tell me that they knew. And I never...
Go ahead. No, of course. And the shame you mentioned is normal with suicide, with not talking about it and not talking about what led up to it, the mental health aspect. And I know for me, I had Huntington's disease in my family, which was shameful. People didn't talk about it. It's just a different family secret, if you will.
Yeah.
But that, when I first met you and we went out, we went out to dinner and I remember the look on your face when you finally told me what happened to your dad.
Yeah.
And how scared you were to tell me. And I just remember feeling such sadness for you and sadness that you had gone through that. And so it's such a big topic. It's such a big thing that happened to you, just that alone. But you, in losing your dad, because people are listening who have had this happen to them and they may see some solidarity with you talking about some signs that you might have seen in him, in your Aunt Catherine, in anyone else in your family, and everybody's different. But what were some of the signs that you may have seen in your dad that maybe could help someone who's listening and sees signs in their family member?
Sure. Yeah. So I didn't notice anything really for the majority of the time that he was that we were together. And I would say right around the time that I was leaving high school and going to college, there was some acknowledgement that there was struggles there with depression, and he was on medication at that time. And my parents never really like sat me down and really kind of explained in any way like, this is a serious matter that we're trying to get a handle on. We never had like discussions as a family about trying to navigate what this is like. And I never noticed, and also because the year plus leading up to that, I was in school. And from basically the time that I left, the summer after graduating high school, I was at school from, September. I stayed there for the summertime to do shows. So I was barely home. So, and that was like the year leading up to it. So I didn't really have any signs that were like, okay, you need to pay attention to this. And I really didn't have that. And I wonder, if that was a means of protecting a child, protecting, even though I was 18, and but my parents protecting their only child, and maybe not divulging a severity. And I could argue that my mom might have not known how severe it was either, because when somebody can admit that they're having these mental issues and like hearing voices and wrestling with all of the things that on the spectrum of mental health, the things that he was wrestling with, I might not have been privy to everything. It might have just been very surface for my protection. So I didn't really notice signs per se. Yeah.
Did you see anything physical in your dad change? Did you see that he maybe looked different, that he, I
The
know the
one,
hearing voices and medication and all that stuff was him.
yeah,
I think if you are vulnerable enough to say, I'm hearing voices, that's a pretty big thing to admit.
yeah,
To know
yeah,
that he and getting on medication and hoping that that would make it better. I feel like that's a really, really strong thing that your dad did,
hmm
to try to help it, to try to combat it. But again, I think, yeah, you're right. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I would protect the boys. I would protect our boys if that was happening to you, or if, you
yeah,
just don't, but you also, again, you don't know the severity of it in so many instances.
right. And being that our boys are very young, it's a different thing when you're talking about preteens versus someone who's in college. That's why I say, like, I had like that. I had enough life experience at the time to understand after it happened, that these things do happen. And yes, my other family members, it's very different when it's not your parent. Other family members that it happened to with overdosing on drugs and things like that. I was very young. I was like 6. So I had no concept of what that really was. And finding out later in life, like, oh, this is what they were going through. And then you just start kind of playing it back. But when I didn't have there was no signs at all because I was so young. I was so,
But
there's no,
Your Aunt Catherine, who you're talking about, who did overdose, you wonder if it now as you're older and you kind of think back, you were so young, but it was your dad's sister, and you think that maybe it was some kind of depression, and maybe it was some kind of, she did it on purpose. Maybe, I mean, that's something where you don't
yeah.
really know, but
And
and
again,
I
like,
don't think.
she was very young. I mean, I think if I'm trying to do the math, she was probably like 22, 21 or 22.
Yeah.
And all I knew of her was she was my super cool aunt that I got to see a couple of times a year because she didn't live, or she traveled around and did different things. And it was kind of like, oh, your Aunt Catherine's in town, she's gonna, we're gonna go say hi. It wasn't really like, we weren't like seeing each other with any sort of like consistency. It was, I really, it's like back when I like open up photo albums and kind of look and go, oh yeah, I remember that time and that time. But we weren't like super close. I just remember at the time being very young, thinking that she was like super cool, and we always had a great time. Um,
And
and had and never and I
yeah.
never saw her. And again, I was so young that if I was um, around her when she was dealing with anything, or maybe she was physically looking different, or strung out, quote unquote, or whatever the case may be, I never noticed. Um, so, and the same
Because
with
your
my
dad
dad. The
and
one thing
Catherine
I will,
both did drugs. They both were, and that sometimes I feel like in connection to suicide or in connection to maybe masking mental health stuff. Um, that I feel like is the commonality with the two. Not only that they were brother and sister, but maybe that they were trying to mask something, and
sure,
deal with, or had an addictive personality, depression.
yeah, yeah, and I can't sit here and fully say that in any way that it's because of drugs or anything like that, because obviously there's billion people in the world that take drugs regularly and aren't depressed. But for them specifically, I think that is right, that they needed outlets and obviously, drugs are very, very much an accessible outlet to mask all kinds of things that are just either too hard to face, or you're trying to escape a life that, you're not happy living in. And then
But your
ultimately
dad
it
did
just,
go to therapy. Your dad did go to therapy. He went to, that's how he got the medication. So,
yeah.
and I know
And,
therapy
and it's,
back in that
go ahead.
generation was so, just kind of not looked at as going to therapy was strong. It was like doing all these things that were active for your mental health. I feel like in our parents' generation was looked at as like a weakness, if you will.
For sure. Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Yeah.
suicidal tendencies is like, I think the great thing about now progressing is it's a legitimate mental disease,
Hmm.
meaning it's
Yeah.
not a weakness or a failure to go try to take care of
Right.
this. And
Yeah.
so I do consider, especially your dad, with maybe all of the stigma that came with him going to the doctor and saying out loud, I'm hearing voices, out loud, I need medication, let's help.
Yeah.
Even if it didn't end up, you know, quote unquote, fixing the problem, I feel like that's such a strong thing that he did.
Absolutely. And, unfortunately, it wasn't enough. And, at the time that had happened, we had gone through some situations with our family where, his mom and dad, they split up when he was a teenager. And I think all of it, with in terms of like, because he had a sister and a brother. And I feel like, broken homes can totally splinter families, and it can cause, especially in young kids and in the teenage years, everything's already, messy anyway. So to add a broken home in the middle of that, you're gonna find kids having anger issues and rebellious issues. And at the time, this was, we're talking the mid '70s, and we're talking sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and all that kind of stuff. And it was really easy to just kind of get into that lifestyle, and it unfortunately can grab a hold of some people. And I feel like that aspect carried on through his life, and he got over his drug addiction when I was very young, like 8 or 9 years old is when he got clean. But
Yeah.
also the relationship with his mom, she never remarried, and lived alone, and it felt very like. And again, this is one of those things. Growing up, I wasn't really privy to all the details. I just was like, yeah, my grandma lives alone, half hour away from the house. We would see her every now and again, and never was really like. I mean, you're little. Your parents aren't going to be like, oh, well, this is what's going on with grandma. And well, you don't really get told those things too much. You don't dive into detail with your kids about that level of things, or at least it feels it's pretty common that you have to wait for them to be old enough to really explain things to them so they can understand it. And for me,
Sorry,
um,
hold. It's okay. I can cut this out. Sorry, baby. I felt it coming up. Okay.
so she was having health issues herself, and she was going through dementia, and she was getting to the point where we couldn't have her living alone anymore. She was starting to fall down. Her not just her mental health, but her physical, the need for her to be physically cared for
Yeah.
was a reality now. And when we as a family, including with his brother, made the decision to have her go down and live with him, which then she was ultimately putting to a nursing home facility to care for her. It really busted him up, I think, because there was an element of like, did I just abandon my mom? I'm only kind of piecing that together. He obviously never told me these things, but I feel like that was in some way a tipping point for him where
Yeah.
he might have been getting a grip on certain things, but adding that onto it might have been something that was just ultimately too hard to cope with.
And that's something as now we're older and you are older than he was when he passed. And you see your parents aging, you see your mom getting older, and I see my, dad getting older, and my mom has passed away. And like that burden, if you're not mentally, if you're already dealing with mental stuff, that burden can sometimes be the straw, if you will. Like you said, it's something that you just couldn't handle. And
Yeah.
also, like, your dad left you a video. Your dad left you, he didn't just leave, he left you an explanation. The
Yeah.
way that he took his life was not sudden, it was methodical. I say that because there may be somebody out there listening who is, kind of trying to sift through some things with their own experiences or their own feelings about their person that they know that took their life. And I know you've thought about this in the past 20 years, but that right there, to have that gift that your dad gave you, not everybody gets that. So I also think of that as a very, very strong and very hard thing to do that your dad did for you and your mom
Yeah.
when he thought he was making the best decision for the two of you.
Yeah, and he had, and it's, yes, that there's elements of closure there. Like the folks who have experienced it and have like, if the person who took their life never left a note or a video, it does just leave a complete open wound. You will always have way more questions that will never be answered. And I think that is just absolutely, it can feel impossible to deal with. And it really does take certain mentalities and strength and time to be able to move forward without constantly questioning why
Yeah.
did this happen? But even with having that, I still had, especially, right when it happened, even having that, not fully understanding why he couldn't get past what was going on. Like I absolutely had, and I'm not going to say that I actually don't know if I was ever really angry with him. I don't think that I ever really was like super mad at him. Mad at the fact, for sure. The selfish feelings of, oh my God, my dad's gone,
Yeah.
but I never really got mad at him, which was, and whether you can call that a good or a bad thing, I don't know. This could just be like my personality. But he said things in the video and in the note that were probably comforting to him. Like he would say that he believed in our family, that there was money out there that would have been owed or could be given to us to help because he's gone. Like I think that he was aware that this is going to be a hardship, obviously, not just the fact that he's removing himself from our lives permanently, but like what it could do to us financially, and there was no money like that. And
But he
and
thought that he thought you would get money from him going.
I think money from like not like from him having a life insurance thing, which did not happen. Like we got no, as my mom and I got nothing for it. And no, I'm saying he thought within our extended family that there was money there that would have either been passed to him through an inheritance or he was never really clear about that. I think that he just believed, which could also have been him trying to justify it in his head, that we would be okay. Even though that was not the reality. And even though it did force us, like my parents, we struggled growing up with not having a lot of money, going from apartments to townhouses and back and forth, especially when my dad was going through his cocaine addiction and my parents split up, then going back into a townhome situation and really having that, you know, as they would tell me, striving to finally get the house that they always wanted and having a place so that, you know, I could have my friends come over and they don't feel like it's super crowded, or like be able to, because we have a big extended family, to have the family come over to our place and you know, all of those things that you have when you're, you know, raising a family and you have the dreams of like, we want the house and the thing, blah, blah. And we finally got that and had it for just a few years, and it all fell apart. I mean, as soon as he was gone, we had to,
Because that's
sell.
the house that he took his
Yeah.
life in. Which isn't it crazy that, I mean, you and I have had that exact same conversation of, we lived in apartments, we want our kids to have this house, we want all these material things, when really our kids want us. They want us, you know, and it's like the love that's there is the most important thing. And, you know, I know this is a heavy conversation. People who are listening, it's like, it's so important to lift the veil on and speak openly about these things. That's why, you know, I remember when my mother was alive and you and I had a fight about talking about what really happened to your dad, because my mom kept saying, you know, Dustin's going to be the age that his dad was when he passed away. Has he checked his heart? Does he have heart problems? Remember all that? And I remember we were in our apartment in Hollywood, and our wedding picture jumped off the wall when we were in the middle of fighting. You don't remember this, but I remember this distinctly. And I had a lot of signs when my mom passed away. She came to me in my dreams like a few times to tell me she was okay. I know you've had no signs from your dad, but that I say, because soon after that, I think is when you finally said, but you yelled at me. You were like, I don't need to say anything or something. It was a very intense thing. And then I kind of said, why do I so need you to reveal this and talk about it? It's so unfair. And I think I apologized later, like, I shouldn't be pulling this out of you. It's such a hard thing.
Yeah.
But
But
this is where, you know, we've been together so long. I'm so glad that, like, but that picture coming off the wall scared me so much. But I immediately was like, okay, Jim, I feel like that was your dad, but that's just me.
no, sure. And there's
Being,
nothing, there's obviously nothing that I could say. Like, I would never go, oh no, that wasn't, you know, no, if it was, it was. Signs are all over the place, I think. But I think that, you know, sometimes it just takes being with the right person at the right time to finally give you, meaning myself, the strength to finally do it. The strength to finally go, no, this happened and this is what happened. And I don't have all the answers. I don't have the whys. I don't have, you know, a bow to put on the whole thing. But to finally go, no, I don't have to hide behind. And it never, and that's the odd thing. For so long, it never felt like hiding, because like I said before, it really wouldn't come up. I mean, you don't have a lot of people in your life, even in the lightest way, prying into, oh, how did they
no,
pass? Why? You know, you just, you say when you're in your late 20s, oh, my dad passed, you know, about a decade ago. Oh, you know, and people give their, I'm so sorry, and the condolences, and they're very nice, but then
yeah.
it just kind of goes on because, you know, it's just what it is.
But it's
And
really, this is part of this conversation why I really wanted to talk to you and have this be something that, you know, for suicide awareness is really about your dad's legacy, your aunt's legacy, if that's, you know, really anyone else in your family or anybody who takes their life. It's like, that's not who they were in their entirety. And I feel like if you are somebody who takes your life by suicide, it is the main thing people talk about is
mhm.
how you died. And you just made the point that people don't really ask about it. And so, like, for me, and for our boys, like, I want them to know their grandpa.
Yeah.
I've never even seen a video of your dad. It's so funny. I've seen pictures, but I don't even know what he was like in that way, other than a few stories you've told me. But I think that's so important for people who have had someone who has died of suicide, that they lived in the best way they could. Yes, it was tragic how they passed, but that shouldn't be their legacy, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yes, I agree with that for sure. And yeah, you don't, you know, it's again, it's been just so long that I mean, if you really think about it, it's just rare that it comes up, even just in general conversation, the fact that someone's passed after it's been so long.
Yeah.
Um, but you're right about
But your dad's legacy is more than just how he died.
no,
Your
for
dad had
sure.
a really full life, an amazing life, you know.
Well, I would say he had a life that he had a life of struggle for sure. Um, I wouldn't necessarily classify it as an amazing life. You could compare it to a lot of other people, but he definitely had his struggles through his teenage years, his early 20s, of course, with drug addiction, having his wife take his son from him and having to piece it all back together. And he really, he was an electrician and he hated it. I mean, he was on construction sites and always wished he was able to do other things that he never was able to bring to fruition. He had dreams that he never fulfilled. And he certainly had a better life than many people when you're getting into the comparison game. Sure, his 43 years were probably better than many people that you could name. But if I was to sit there and say, did he have an amazing life? I think that he had glimpses of it. I think that there was times that he was wildly happy and would probably say that he felt successful or accomplished or whatever the case may be. But I do think that he had an unfortunate battle that he obviously lost to, and it's not to say that he didn't have the tools or the support to to uh, to have a different outcome. Because who's to say that it just would have prolonged? It could have just prolonged the outcome. But yeah, and it's also as we all get older and start recognizing parts of ourselves that are our parents, and being a performer, having I'm in rock bands. My dad was a big rock hippie kind of guy, long hair, beard. I mean, there's so many comparisons and similarities. And then when I've been doing a show down in South Carolina for a handful of years now that his like best friends from high school now attend, and they'll come and they'll be there like with that group of friends, and like they'll see my mom, and every time I see them, they have a look as if they're looking into the past. It's like they're
Yeah.
this literally, and they'll say things like, "Do you know that you're living your dad's dream?" And those things are always so like it's so like hard to take in because I understand what they mean. Like
Yeah.
my dad, if he had the choice to snap his fingers, would have probably been a rock star or been on. He was so funny and loved playing jokes on people. He was like it's such a practical joker and was very much a chill, lighthearted kind of got along with everybody kind of person. For anybody that was around him, from anybody that talks about him, they were always like, Jim was awesome. So there was that shock that like, well, I mean, yeah, he had his struggles but cocaine in the 80s, I mean, throw a rock and you'll hit three people who are that age that dealt with cocaine addiction or something. And
Exactly.
it was so rampant back then. So you can't really connect like, oh yeah, well, he had a drug addiction back in the 80s. It's, maybe a causality of what's going on. I think that he absolutely had the opportunity at that time to go way too far with drugs like his sister did, or choose other drugs that he wouldn't have been able to get a grip on.
But also you just said what his legacy really is, and that's you
Mm-hmm.
and our boys. And I
Yep.
think looking at that life, I think first I'm sad that I never got to know him.
Mhm.
But I think, one of the things that you and I have in common is my mom wanted to be a dancer.
Yeah.
She never really went for it. She didn't make that choice. So that's a lesson right there in just jumping in and doing what you love. But your dad's legacy lives on in you.
Yeah.
And you are, you're a mix of your mom and dad, but
Oh,
definitely,
for sure.
because you're a guy, you look like your dad. Everybody says that, Max looks like you. And I'm like, hey, what about me? But it's one of those things that's the legacy that your dad, wherever he is, looking upon what you're doing, what the boys are doing, and knowing that that maybe is his greatest accomplishment of life if he felt like he didn't follow through with his dreams or whatever. But I think wherever he is, that is something he's smiling at, in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I mean, so when there's people who are out there who are struggling from depression, suicidal thoughts, or have a loved one who they're really worried about, and what are some final parting words that you would like to tell them today?
Um, I would say that you shouldn't ever feel ashamed if you have something going on that's out of your control and you want help for it. We live in an age where we are very, very fortunate to have so many avenues for help. Even if you think about social media and all the terrible things that it can bring out, but it also has the ability to have people tell their stories or give you an avenue to a phone number, a group, an organization that is like 24/7 call, no matter what. No matter what. There's always 24/7, 365. Doesn't matter if it's Christmas morning.
Yeah.
You have the ability to pick up a phone and talk to somebody. And
And
it's,
you said it that people who smile and seem happy and nothing seems to bother them, they are historically a lot of the people who take their life. They do because they feel like I don't know. I don't know how, this is a blanketed statement, how everybody would feel, but a lot of times, you look at the Robin Williams, who was like a really, really happy guy who seemed like he had everything.
of course, yeah. And
That
that's the
can be
thing.
a sign.
There's that cliche of you never know what someone's going through. Even the
Yeah.
happiest people that you interact with on a daily basis, people do put on a persona so that they don't have to. I mean, there's a million reasons why. It could be because they don't want to bring other people around them down. If they have to go to work, it's not fair to bring all these people into their personal struggles. The list goes on and on and on. And you're totally right that sometimes the happiest people, you have no clue, are actually battling the worst mental thoughts or demons, like some people say. You have your mental demons, kind of a thing.
Yeah. And
But
like also, it's a curated life on social media. I mean, it's
oh
something
yeah,
that
everybody's fabulous
you're
on
not going to
Facebook.
go
Let's
off that,
face it.
or
Yeah.
people don't want you to see the dark side of them. They don't want to
Yeah,
admit.
and I think as the generations go on, uh, in the social media age that we're in, I feel like in our generation of people, like past our parents, that I've seen a lot more people be vulnerable on social media with really, really troubling things. I mean,
Yeah.
from not just struggling mentally, but struggling personally, financially, whatever. They're being very open. And it's up to us, I think, to recognize that in certain people and to reach out, help any way you can. And for the people that are listening that may be struggling and really struggling to the point of I'm contemplating harming myself or harming someone else, which is even worse. I mean, we're obviously in such a an age where tragedy feels like it's just every other day, that
Yeah.
we're hearing something, and people are struggling, and it just feels like there's it's this this duality of there's so many avenues for help, but then also so many avenues for people to express themselves in really, really bad, violent ways. And it's got to be, to me, when we talk about like people who struggle with mental health and they go and shoot up a school, for example, where you go, well, was there any signs, like you were asking, was there any signs? Did you see anything? And I'm going, we've heard this, it's an unfortunate reality for decades now. So do we need to start recognizing things in kids, even if they're small things, to where like we need to normalize speaking to people, so we don't make it seem and don't carry on this trend of, oh, you only go and speak to a therapist if you have a problem, quote unquote. Like, start young and get accustomed and comfortable with, I'm just going to talk. Maybe I'm having mild struggles here and there, but I'm just going to talk, and I'm going to, and let a professional maybe say, there's a child that is concerning me. Let me just keep a note about this. And if I can, I'll talk to their parents or their guardian and kind of just say, I recognize some things. I want to make sure that we're putting them in the path for their best possible future, versus
and normalizing therapy, normalizing mental health, normalizing, making it something that is like brushing your teeth. You're brushing your mind. It's why I do the Mental Health Mondays, because I'm like almost overly share vulnerable things and things that have happened to me on this podcast, to people. But it's like, I feel like so you cannot be vulnerable without being courageous. That's not me. That's Brene Brown that says that. It's really courageous to be that vulnerable and to really talk about that. That's why I go back to your dad saying, I'm hearing voices. That's so courageous to be able to say that, to go on medication, to go to a doctor, to really try, even though he may have failed. I don't like saying the word failed.
Right.
But his path didn't lead to, but he tried. And so to me, I think that is just the strongest thing you can do.
Yeah, I was going to say, I had one friend whose response to the video that I made was just that. He goes, people put this thing on suicide that they call it like a coward act, that they basically quit literally everything, including obviously their own life. And he put it as, I don't think people understand enough how absolutely the courage it takes to do something like that. And it's a weird thing to look at, because we always look at courage as a positive thing. We look at courage as like, people who are courageous and brave. They're like, they have like that almost, slight hero aspect where they're able to do the hard thing, but it's usually for a good thing. And you can be brave to do a really bad thing to yourself. It's really to do something like that takes a lot of balls or guts or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to kind of wrap my head around that, because you have selfish thoughts as a person who's on the receiving end, being the child of a person who took their own life. Because I didn't look at that for years as courageous. I looked at it as well, no matter what was going on. I mean, I had selfish thoughts of like, we weren't enough to keep you around, even though you could call me your biggest trophy. Okay. But I wasn't enough. And that's natural, I think, to go through that level of like, you try to put yourself in that person's shoes, and what it must have taken day after day, year after year, of trying to put your best foot forward, trying to quiet the voices, trying to get help, and still it not being enough. The understanding of what it's going to do forever to your family.
Yeah.
And still being able to go through with it.
And that was what I feel like people who make that decision, and yes, I agree with you. It takes a lot of courage to do that, but to do it, however it happens, but they do feel like life would be better without me. And that's
Yeah.
their reality. That's their mental struggle. And they do go, I need a break. I need to go. And as
Yeah.
much as we are sitting on the other side going, "Oh, why did you leave me?" That was what they needed to do for them. And
Yeah. And,
so,
and hearing that though, just to dive in, anybody who's listening, I don't want to say that gives anybody like, and I don't have any license to do this or anything, but like gives like a pass. You know what I mean?
no, of course, yeah.
Because you do have other options. You you aren't alone. And I
Yeah.
think that's what a lot of people think. They could have a big immediate family, a spouse, children, and still feel alone because in their own head and their own thoughts, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter enough because they're losing the battle.
They're losing
And
the battle. Yeah.
and you
But
just have to,
talking about it like this, making sure that we lift the veil, really
yeah,
fleshing it out, really allowing it to be a conversation, I think will help people. I know will help people feel less alone because that's really you feel like there's no other choice. And your honesty and your courage of sharing your journey as a survivor of a parent who took their life, that's going to help so many people. And I'm just so thankful that you said yes to coming on this podcast and talking to me.
and I
you
and I
know,
think I thank you for being a person who gave me the courage to finally lift that veil of shame. And it's weird because like I said, a lot of time went by and I didn't feel ashamed all
yeah,
the time. But if you are out there and you do feel ashamed to admit it, or you feel like it in some way is making people look at you in the light that they're now connecting what happened to a parent or a loved one to you, that is mostly you thinking that. If anything, most people are probably feeling sorry for you or feeling for you, but not necessarily because like going back to one of the reasons of not telling the truth was if I ever expressed a a dark place or a deep level of sadness or as silly like I said as going through scene work and the subject matter was really heavy, that thought of like people going, oh, his dad, God, you think he could? And then you put those thoughts into your head that people are going to associate their mentality with your reality. And that's just human nature. But just know that it's probably not the case with 99% of the people that are understanding that you're going through this. Most people are there for you. And to hold on to that, like anybody who's a survivor of this, you are not alone and you are not the person that it happened to. Or you're not
yeah.
the person, you're not them. Everybody's got their own stuff, but you're not them just because you're related, you're a child, you're not them. And most people will have your back. Most people will support you and try to lift you up. And we're in the age of instant help. Like instant help. If you have the
Yeah.
ability to dial a number, you
Well,
have
you can dial 988 for the suicide and crisis lifeline. You can text or dial that and then you can talk to somebody and that's 24 hours a day. And that's going to be in the show notes. So anybody that needs a connection and where do I go and what do I do? 988 for the suicide and crisis lifeline. That's 24 hours a day, which is, I don't even know how long that's been available, but that's huge for people to be able to do.
hmm
And you know what? By lifting the veil, telling the truth, you're honoring the lives of those people that we've lost, your
yeah.
dad, and even everybody that's listening.
And other
And
family
thank
members,
God.
not to gloss over it, but I had family members who struggled with addiction and some of them were in the military and never fully recovered from the experiences that they had over there. There were some people who were parents of a child who was taken too early via horrific circumstances, and the parent couldn't deal with the loss, even though they had other children they were leaving behind. I mean, this is a real thing, and people have such a, it's really just this spectrum of what your mental state will go through when dealing with such a wide array of however you say it of circumstances that could lead to having the thoughts of, I can't be here anymore.
You don't know what everybody's going through in the world. You
So to that
have
point,
no idea. Yeah.
to that point, the people who are walking through the world, you have no idea what they're struggling with. So just lead with love and kindness, and just give people a break. Just give people a break, and don't, like, we're in such an age of these damn keyboard warriors, and you could say, one thing that's even positive, sending love out to a tragedy, and the comment sections are just going for you, and you're like, yeah, this exists right now. It really does exist. It's unfortunate. I don't want to pretend that it's not a actual real thing, that people just love to tear you down, and it's really easy to believe it all, think that what they're saying about you is true, and sink into a dark place and feel like you're completely alone, and you're not. You're
not alone. And even those people who are keyboard warriors, we say hurt people. You don't know what they're going through. It doesn't excuse it, but just know that sometimes you got to step away, but be kind. And if you're struggling, get help.
Yeah.
So I love you, babe. I'm just so thankful that you said yes. And I know this conversation is going to help so many people.
Well, I'm thankful you.
If you're looking on YouTube or Patreon, we're showing our rings.
Why do I feel like this is live? It's like, I feel like we're like live streaming.
We're live to the world. No, I just appreciate you, and thank you for joining us, everybody that's listening, for this really important conversation. If there is somebody in your life that you feel that would benefit from this episode, please share it. Please go on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. And remember, bliss is your birthright. You are meant to be blissful in this world. So reach out, get help, and know that suicide is, something that we need to lift the veil on and talk about more. And have vision for what you want, and be grateful for where you are every single day. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Yay!
We did it.
So happy.
Yeah.
So we're just going to do like 10 minutes for Patreon, because I like to do, so say hi to everybody on Patreon.
Hi, everybody on Patreon. On Patreon.
So we just talked about a lot of deep stuff.
Yeah, we did.
And maybe next time we'll talk about fun, happy stuff.
Yes, I know. But
did you see that Max, our oldest son, called me because it's Wednesday and they're out early.
Yeah.
So we're sitting here trying to do this podcast episode, and I'm thinking they're going to barrel in because the bus is going to drop them off, and they're going to barrel in.
I'm like, I know I'm on Patreon, but I'm going to text our son back because we have to be good parents. And
we're going to see. Well, that's okay. They like the behind the things. He just wants to hang out with his friends.
Oh.
So hopefully that happened. Isn't that sweet? So, for Patreon, what are some things, I'm going to ask you 5 questions that we didn't talk about on the podcast that only Patreon members are going to get. What is your favorite thing about me?
Oh my gosh. What
I
about
didn't
on the
prepare
spot? Really? My favorite thing about you on the spot? Oh my gosh. I actually think, if I'm going to try to put it into one thing, I would say it's the love that you put out into the world. I really do see it in how you're, co-raising our boys. I see it in how you treat every single person that you come across. I see it in how you are with this reach of your podcast and your social presence and all that. I think that you truly do lead with love, and I feel like that's it's
Oh, babe, that's so nice. I think I would say the same about you, which is why we're a good team.
even though I
I
have no idea.
try. I'm surprised you said that. I treat everybody with love. Not everybody. There's some I'm very opinionated. That's one of the things about if people were to sit on the couch with us, we are very opinionated.
You
We
can
have
be
our
opinionated, but still lead with love into the world. I mean, you're gonna have thoughts. We're in the business of dealing with lots of different personalities and lots of different scenarios where you're like thrown into very big personalities, and you're navigating who's also navigating you. Let's not pretend that we're sitting here like these
Oh yeah, I'm not
people who
perfect.
got it
No
all
way.
figured out and don't make mistakes and don't get pissed off and don't, the whole thing. And it happens. But at the end of the day, it's like what we say to our kids, you can be mad, but you can't be mean. You can't be mean.
You
You
can be
gotta, you
mad
gotta
and
lead, you gotta lead with kindness
let
and
that shit
let that
go.
shit
This is
go.
my favorite
Yeah. Which
favorite
is
topic ever.
hard. It's one of the hardest things to do, especially if somebody's wronged you, to
Ooh.
have,
Yes.
like you say, have your 5 minutes, which sometimes can be 5 days, sometimes, you know what I
Or
mean?
longer.
Or longer. But at the end, you got to go. I've handled this enough. Or if it's personal, relationships with maybe somebody that you don't have to associate with, if they've done something and you're like, I have tried to make the whole thing better, and they're not coming back to me, let them.
Let them. We talk about the, thank God for Mel
You love.
Robbins and the let them theory.
And it's really also hard to send them love and go, I understand that you were like this to me. I don't wish you any ill will. I do not hate you, but I'm letting you go.
That's one of my things. If we're going to turn the tables, that I admire about you is your ability to really let things go and seemingly not stew about it. And how, you and I have both had family life where I, had Huntington's disease in my family. There's, we talked about that on the podcast where that's a high rate of suicide. And there's like all this stuff associated with that. It did not come into our family, meaning my mom didn't have it.
Yeah.
Didn't have it. So there's a lot of times when I go, oh my God, I have an extra lease on life. So things don't have to
Sure.
be so
Yeah.
heavy. But
Yeah.
that's one of the things you're way better. And you've taught me over the past 14 years how to really be way better about that. And when I was leading with hate or being like, I'm going to get back at this person, which I really wasn't that bad, but like it
No,
never did any good.
it
I
never does any
switched to
good.
leading with love because it doesn't do any good.
And
It just,
it's not an uncommon thing to want revenge.
yeah.
Not like a terrible revenge. I'm not going to say that it's a common thing that people want harm to any other person that's harmed
No.
you. But it's very common that you want people to get theirs, or you want other people who may view that person, oh, they're so great. What do you mean? Oh my God, I love them. It's like, well, they were a dick to me, kind of a thing, right? To want them to
Yes. You
be
don't, yeah.
to want that veil to be lifted and go, see, that's how they are. That's so
Yeah.
natural to want people to be kind of like outed in the way they treated you. But at the end of the day, it's also like,
What is that energy going to do?
yeah, what is that
It's,
energy going to do?
it's
Because
just going to
if you're
create
somebody
more
who thinks
revenge.
if you're
Yeah.
somebody who thinks the universe is a give and take thing where you're going to get from the universe what you give to the universe, and it's this
Hmm.
like this dance that we're all doing. Well, if you give crap and give vengeance and give I hope well, the universe is going to go, oh, I think you like that stuff, and it's
Yeah,
probably going to give you more scenarios for you to have to deal with that stuff. And then it's like,
exactly.
why does my life feel like it's a struggle? Why does my life feel like I'm having more conflict? Because maybe the universe is going, because it seems like you like it, because you talk about it all the time and you throw it out there as if this is the thing. And it's it can sound kind of frou-frou and sound kind of like all, oh, that's just, all of that stuff. But
Let that shit
yeah,
go.
but with like manifesting and things like that, like when you're talking about manifestation, it also can come to manifest how you want your life to be. And if you're somebody who, not just about like attainable things or a goal that you want to reach or something like that, but just how you get to walk through the world and have experiences that aren't full of conflict. I feel like the more you can center yourself and go, I'm not going to treat or react or whatever. If you lead in that place of kindness and love, I really feel like you're going to have more experiences in that
Oh,
world.
our youngest is at the door, so hold on.
Uh-oh.
You keep talking.
Me keep talking? Now it feels like I'm just entertaining the masses to myself. Oh, God.
We're doing a little thing for Patreon. Come in really fast. So we're still recording.
Billy!
Almost done. We're gonna say goodbye with our we're gonna say goodbye with Arrow and Billy. Come here, Billy. Max is hanging out with
The
his
two
friends. Come here.
stinkers.
This is a really big behind the scenes. So this one just came home from school.
Hi.
And this is
Hey, buddy.
say hi to everybody on Patreon.
Hi, Dad.
Hello, son.
All right. That's it. Bye. Bye.
Our son has